The story of Chanderi is an old one. It can be traced back to a millennia. It is mentioned repeatedly in the famous travelogue of the Arab traveller Al-Baruni. In his Kitabul Hind, he mentions that situated on the connecting route between the Uttarapath and Dakshinapath, the major trading routes, it was an important halting stage. Traders came here with their caravanserais from all over the world, with their exotic produce and diverse influences. And it is not surprising that Chanderi flourished as a peaceful, prosperous township, also inheritor to a rare multicultural inheritance. The old city of Chanderi was settled amidst a forest in an area what is known today as Budi Chanderi. We can see even today remnants of beautiful Jain temples and old palaces here. In the medieval period, the population shifted to the present site. This location was naturally very well protected and nobody found it necessary to build a massive fort here. It was difficult for an invader to reach. To protect the city, a fortified wall was raised all around its circumference.
Chanderi in Madhya Pradesh is at a distance of 110 kilometers from Jhansi. Its cultural significance is no less than its strategic importance. One encounters buildings of all types in this fortified city. The residents of Chanderi were well protected and prospered for centuries.
द्वापर युग से बसी चंदेरी दुनिया ने यह मानी है, वो सबा पहर कंचन की वर्षा हो गई बनकर पानी है। फल फूलों से लदी चंदेरी सबको लगी सुहानी है, भारत के वीर सपूतों की यह रियासत रही पुरानी है।
The Chanderi described by Ibn Battuta lies hidden today in dense forest. It is called Budi Chanderi. A German historian has discovered 55 Jain temples here. Most of them have been built during the 10th and 11th centuries. There are many broken idols and stone inscriptions that lie scattered in the surrounding area.
Chanderi was on the trade route of ancient India, connecting North India with South India. Most of the caravans used to pass through Chanderi. Chanderi was a very historical center also, and a very mighty fort was built by Rajput kings there. The fort was there right from the 10th, 11th century onwards. But in the 15th and 16th century, during the period of Medini Rai, he further fortified it and it became a very impregnable fort.
The main fort is built on the top of a hill. The approaching enemy forces could be spotted from the commanding height. In times gone by, the hills and rocks served as suitable protection. Strong walls and towers were built to further strengthen the defenses. The sprawling ramparts girdled the city to serve as its shield. Fortified gates were strategically placed at sensitive spots, and the passages through these were narrow and uphill.
Chanderi was a very important link between north and south. That is why most of the important sultans also, right from Balban, Muhammad Tughlaq, even Alauddin Khilji and almost all the important rulers, once in their lifetime they had passed through this area. So it was such a very important strategic position also, and it was on the trade route of medieval and ancient India also. That is why Babur he wanted to conquer it. He came to the conclusion that unless and until he conquers this very important fort of Chanderi, he would not be able to complete his dream of conquering the whole northern India.
The most memorable event in the fort's history is perhaps the encounter between Babur and Medni Rai. The ruler of Chanderi fought with great courage and became a martyr defending Chanderi. It was after this decisive battle that Babur decided to stay back in India, and this is how the Mughal dynasty was born. Babur constructed a mosque during his stay in Chanderi. Its architecture indicates that it may have been built on the remains of an old structure. The pillars are decorated with verses of the Holy Quran. Hard stone has been delicately carved and testifies to the skills of local craftsmen. The mosque is small but impressive.
Chanderi is on the imperial route. These are in the post-Sultanate period. There are several regional centers come up, and some of them grow in greater stature. They are seats of culture. They are forts. They are seats of culture. They are seats of economy, seats of industry. Chanderi is a major example.
The Jama Masjid, adorned with beautiful domes and minarets, is reckoned among the oldest mosques in Bundelkhand. These buildings could be commissioned in Chanderi at that time because its rulers were skilled in sharing the prosperity of traders and merchants who passed through the city. These riches contributed to the building of this mosque.
It's an important fort in the Malwa on the road to the Deccan. Why are these forts important? Why do they come up where they come up? If you take into account a fort like Kumbhalgarh, you will find that most of these forts are strategically located either on the trade routes or very close to the trade routes. They are the forts which can command the revenue of the trade route, because trade would mean toll, taxes, duties, levies. Trade would mean plunder, loot, brigandage. Don't underestimate these factors of the medieval period and early modern period. I would say don't underestimate these factors even during the modern period or contemporary period.
In the beginning, a small fortress was built here. It grew with the passage of time into a large fort called Kirti Durg. Today it is known as Bala Killa and is considered a good example of the building style that was popular during the 14th and 15th centuries. The structure is solid and utility outweighs aesthetics.
Wherever there is surplus, the ruling class of that area will try to establish a particular stronghold which can then become a regular supply of that surplus. Once you collect the surplus has to accumulate. And once the surplus accumulates, the surplus has to be protected. Because you are not the only one who is eyeing that surplus. There are competitors who are also looking at the surplus with the same eyes as yours. So if you don't protect that surplus, there is likelihood of somebody else coming across and taking and snatching that surplus away from you. Because this is a period when you will not find very large, centrally administered areas.
Badal Mahal is neither a palace nor an entrance to some palace. Its two towering minarets, 15 meters high, are joined by a beautifully carved arch that resembles the delicate filigree work done in silver. Recent excavations have provided evidence of a beautiful two-storied palace that once stood here.
An interesting aspect of the Chanderi story is not very well known. It is the city's special relationship with the Sufi tradition. The Sufis were mystic saints who preached a unique message of humanism and cultural harmony. One of the most famous Sufi saints was Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, who had his seat in Delhi. He was a contemporary of Sultan Alauddin Khilji, and one of his favorite disciples was a well-known musician and a polyglot Amir Khusro. Many of his descendants are buried here in Chanderi and bear testimony to the influence of Sufis in this area.
The fort at Chanderi is famous for the graves where family members of the famous Sufi saint Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia were buried. These were built during the reign of Hoshang Shah Gori, who was his devout follower.
You have got very intricate jali works there. You just cannot think of it how, these people have been able to conceive it and then convert it into execution. The second important landmark is in Muhammad Ghaus Mosque in Gwalior Fort, and the third development of the same thing is in Fatehpur Sikri in Sheikh Salim Chishti's Maqbara. There the jali works is very important and very beautiful, very minute, and you cannot find that kind of jali works except at one place, that is Sidi Sayyid Masjid in Gujarat.
Kushak Mahal was built in the middle of the 15th century by Ghiyasuddin, son of Mahmud Khilji, the Sultan of Malwa. Its building style reflects elements of Iranian and Afghan architecture, besides architectural traits of Indian palaces. Some historians are of the view that the ravages of time have turned it into a ruin, while others maintain it was never completed and remained a dream.
You feel the past grandeur, you cannot but feel yourself a little sad, a little nostalgic. You are not part of it, you are not there, you have nothing to do with it. And yet, strangely, these places emotively make you their own. And you start feeling like one of those citizens who must have lived in these forts, as if you have come and now you are looking at what you had lost.
Raja Rani Mahal is a complex of twin palaces built in the 16th century by Bir Singh Judeo to serve as residential apartments for the rulers of Chanderi. We are told that the old Satkanda Mahal was repaired and renovated for this purpose. At that time, the construction of regal mansions with many courtyards, Chaukhanda and Nokhanda, was in vogue, and this is the style followed here. Open courtyards and beautiful towers are the characteristic features of these buildings. Later rulers added the hammam, following the Mughal practice.
बुंदेला राजाओं ने यहाँ 253 वर्ष अक्षुण राज किया है, जिसमें चंदेरी में 1605 में महाराजा रामचंद्र ने ये राजा महल, रानी महल और कुआ, बावड़ी, मंदिर ये इनका और सराय का निर्माण कराया है।
Chanderi has many water tanks, ponds and stepwells. Some are rectangular and others circular. Many have beautiful open pavilions at ground level, decorated with small towers. These water bodies not only supplied drinking water but also served as recreational spaces in hot summers.
The mere mention of the word Chanderi evokes visions of colorful Chanderi sarees. These sarees, crafted from silk or cotton, are renowned the world over for their delicate zari work. The weavers of Chanderi are akin to great artists, dancers and musicians who pass on their craft skills to their successors in the Guru Shishya Parampara lovingly. Many of these weavers have been honoured by the Government of India as master craftsmen. When we sit next to their looms here in the city, within the precincts of the fort, we are reminded of the Kabir poem that talks of, metaphorically, of human life as something created by warp weft in the spindle.
Saris from Chanderi are world famous. It is said that the sari weavers of Chanderi were very prosperous. Their women never did any hard work. They grew their nails to test the fine quality of golden embroidery that made the saris so special. Times have changed. Today, the whole family has to toil tirelessly to make both ends meet. old madrasa is situated a short distance away from the main settlement and is a bit of a misnomer. There is no madrasa here, but just another mausoleum decorated with fine stone carvings. There may have been an old school in its vicinity in the past. Shahzadi Ka Roza stands close by. This was a square building crowned with a beautiful dome, large balconies and canopies. This once attractive building is today a ruin.
It's a very beautiful serpentine bracket with all its undulations. It goes and it supports the chajjas. Nowhere else you can see this kind of beautiful brackets. It also originated from Chanderi. From Chanderi it went to Raisan. From Raisan it went to Gwalior Fort, and from Gwalior Fort it has been further perfected in Salim Chishti's Maqbara in Fatehpur Sikri.
For thousands of years, Chanderi and its environs have attracted ascetics and other spiritual seekers in the quest for salvation. This city was a settlement of rich Jain merchants who found security in the city's fortifications. The titanic statues of Jain Tirthankars at Khandagiri present an impressive sight.
You have Hinduism, you have got Jainism, you have got Buddhism, you have got Islamic culture also. It has become a nucleus around which everything is revolving. It can of course be one of the World Heritage sites also. Not from the point of view of the volume of the monument, but a place where the whole urban texture has been even now, it is still standing there. So that way it has not undergone much of a change like that of Agra or Delhi. It is still kept in its own pristine purity.
With the passage of time, the majestic buildings of Chanderi have become dilapidated. Broken idols are strewn all over the place. These fragments of stone are not mute. If you are sensitive and willing to listen, they find speech. They begin to narrate stories of the glorious past of Chanderi. Each stone is a monument rich with a moving story to tell.
Traditionally in India, various rituals have been followed by the people to propitiate the deities and to bring peace and harmony. One such practice to ward off evil spirits is the drawing of colourful patterns called rangoli on the floor at the entrance of a house. Since times unknown, they have been a common feature in various festivities across the country. Legend has it that long ago the son of a renowned king died. Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, requested the king to make a painting of the boy so that he could bring him back to life again. This is how the first rangoli was made, using ground rice and pulses. This is just one of the many folk tales about the origin of the traditional art, and there are many more.
கல்ச்சர்னே சொல்லலாம். இது ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட்டாக அந்த காலத்துலேருந்தே இருக்குது. அந்த காலத்து பெண்கள்லாம் வந்து அரிசி மாவில் கோலம் போட்டாங்க. ஏன்னா அதில் ஒரு தீம் வச்சு தான் போட்டிருப்பாங்க. அதாவது எறும்புகள் இந்த மாதிரி சின்ன பிராணிகளுக்கெல்லாம் ஒரு சாப்பாடு தரணுன்ற ஒரு நல்ல எண்ணத்தில் அவங்கெல்லாம் இப்போ கோலம் போட்டாங்க.
The name Rangoli is derived from the words rang, meaning colors, and avali, meaning row of colors. In the art, which needs lots of patience and creativity, the common patterns are circular, linear, and floral. Circular patterns indicate the endlessness of time. The art is hugely popular all across the country and is known by different names in different regions of India. It is called Alpana in Bengal, Aripana in Bihar, Madana in Rajasthan, Rangoli in Gujarat, Karnataka and Maharashtra, Chowk Purana in Uttar Pradesh, and Kolam in the southern Indian states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
கலர்களை சிகப்பு மஞ்சள் வெள்ளை பச்சை போன்ற பல வண்ணங்களை தீட்டி அது அந்த கோலத்தில் நாங்கள் மயில் கோலம் பூக்கோலம் அப்புறம் ரங்கோலி கோலம் மயில் கோலம் போன்ற வகைகள் கோலங்களை வீட்டில் முன்னாடி நாங்கள் மகிழ்வோம். இந்த தைப்பூசத்தை வந்து நாங்கள் நன்றாக மிகவும் சிறப்பாக கொண்டாடுகின்றோம். இந்த தைப்பூசத்தை வந்து நாங்கள் மிக கோலங்கள் விட்டு அந்த மகிழ்ச்சியை வந்து மிக நன்றாக கொண்டாடி வருகின்றோம்.
With the time, the canvas for Rangoli too has changed. Today, Rangoli artists are even experimenting on water. Interestingly, the Hindu epic Mahabharata inspired this innovation.
पानीपत चित्र की कल्पना मुझे महाभारत के प्रसंग से आई। महाभारत में का वह दृश्य जब कौरव माया महल में जाने लगे और एक गलीचा समझ करके जब उस पर पैर रखा उन्होंने और एकदम वो डूबने लगे, और जब द्रौपदी ने बोला कि अंधे के अंधे ही होते हैं, तब से वो महाभारत प्रसंग जो हुआ और वो जो
Generations is a testimony to this fact.
Propelled some of the most fascinating water structures in India. In the first round, we will travel through water management systems of Sringaverpur and Kalani Dam, one of the oldest dams in the world, the water harvesting structures of Rajasthan's forts, and end up with innovative air cooling systems the Mughals used in their architecture. The only universal need of every culture across the world, irrespective of geography or time, has been water. In India, the history of water management goes back a long way, even before we had begun settling down as organized societies. There is evidence of wells in the Indus-Saraswati Valley from the 3rd millennium BC. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro was probably a water storage tank. The Harappan cities had excellent systems of water harvesting and drainage. In an earlier episode, we explored Dholavira, which was laden with examples of sophisticated water engineering. All this shows that ancient India had a deep understanding of hydrology. Hydrology is the study of waters both on and below the surface of the earth. Hydrology also encompasses the occurrence, distribution, movement and properties of the waters of the earth and their relationship with the environment within each phase of the water cycle. A hydrologic cycle, there are many pathways the water may take. It may be captured for millions of years in polar ice caps. It may flow to rivers and finally to the sea. It may soak into the soil to be evaporated directly from the soil surface. Ganga has mythical connections with the story of Lord Ram. What we are about to explore is a stunning example of ancient hydraulic engineering that dates back to the 1st century BCE. The site was excavated on a large scale by the Archaeological Survey of India between 1977 and 1985. And these excavations uncovered a series of large rectangular brick tanks which were used to supply river water to the city in the most innovative fashion. The most impressive feature of this reservoir is the size. It was engineered to manage the drinking water needs of an entire city. Quite something. Let's explore how these tanks may have worked. This system tapped into the water of the Ganga during the monsoon, when the level of the water usually rose by about 7 to 8 meters. So this water would spill into an adjoining stream or nala. From this stream was a specially built canal, 11 meters long and 5 meters deep. This stream carried the water into the Sringaverpur tanks. There were 3 tanks. The water from the river entered the first tank, which worked as a silting chamber. Here the silt, dirt and debris would settle. The relatively cleaner water then overflowed to enter the main rectangular tank, which was made of bricks. The water was stored here. A stepped outlet from this tank allowed only clean water to trickle through to the next tank, also rectangular in shape. This tank apparently constituted the primary source of water supply for Sringaverpur. There was also a circular tank at one end of the complex. This possessed an elaborate staircase allowing access to the lower levels of the water. The excavators of the site suggest that some shrines stood along the edge of this circular tank and that the waters of this tank were used for ritual bathing and prayers. Let's explore the understanding of water that powered this a little more. The currents of the flood water should have been enough to carry the sediment along with it. How was this prevented? Well, devices called dissipation structure within the tanks systematically and progressively lowered the water velocity as it flowed. The actual construction and dimensions of the tank helped with this. The tanks have a narrow base and a wider top. They're also more constricted where the water enters and broader towards the exit. Each section also had a small outward inclination. As a result, as the water flowed through the system, the level rose. It slowed down, thus giving enough time for the sediments to settle. An elaborate wasteware provided at the end of this tank carried water out of the tank back into the river. The excess water was returned to the river through this final exit channel. A series of wells in the bed of the tank allowed access groundwater even during the hot summer months. This site shows us the hydraulic engineering expertise that existed in India 2000 years ago. An idea that is still so workable even today that it is actually being used in the Clean Ganga program. The science of creating reservoirs and dams evolved in Kaveri. Across the waters here lies one of the oldest irrigation dams in the world, built around 2000 years ago. This dam was built by King Karikala Chol of the Chol dynasty in the 2nd century AD. And the technology was so modern that it is still in use, making it one of the oldest irrigation systems in the world. The Kaveri River splits into 2 channels near the island of Srirangam. The southern channel continues down as the Kaveri, while the northern channel is called Kolledam or Koldrun River. Further downstream, these 2 channels come close again. It is at this point that Karikala Chol decided to build the Kalanai. Why did he do this? Karikalan built the Kalanai for mainly 2 reasons: flood control and irrigation. Having witnessed the river causing great floods during the rainy season and also forcing droughts during the dry months, he and his advisors devised this grand project to maintain a steady flow of water throughout the year. But did the Chols have the technical know-how to put together a structure like this? We know that besides being fierce warriors and conquerors, they had an immense understanding of the arts and crafts. The enormous temples they built, like the Brihadeswar temple at Tanjavur or the Airavateswar temple at Darasuram, stands testimony to their engineering, artistic and architectural brilliance. The first known dam was built in 2900 BC across the Nile River to protect the city of Memphis from flooding. Dam building was continued into the time of the Roman Empire. Dams are also seen in nature. Beavers build dams to keep the water deep enough to cover the openings to their homes, protecting them from predators. Back to the dam we are studying, the Kalanai Dam, which is a simple check dam. This particular dam is built of uncut stone. It is 329 meters long, 20 meters wide, and 5.4 meters high. At the time of the British, some alterations were made on the original structure. They laid the grid separators and a bridge on top of the old dam. In case of a check dam, the most important decision to be taken is its location. This decision is crucial as the effectiveness of the dam depends on this. The advantages of check dams are that they store surface water for use both during and after the monsoon. They help in groundwater recharge of the area. Recharge of water helps in raising the water table in the area. Check dams can be of various sizes and built with a variety of materials, including stone, clay, and cement. This dam is a big reason why Tanjavur is called the rice bowl of South India. It is believed that the Kalanai initially irrigated about 69,000 acres, though it now irrigates close to 1 million acres. The dam also diverts excess flood water. Once the floods were diverted to Kolledam, they flowed directly to the sea, causing minimal damage to agriculture. Next up, we are moving to a fort in Rajasthan, Chittorgarh. But the idea here is to study this stunning fort through a specific lens as to how hydrological science was used to plan many structures like this in medieval India, and how technical know-how was used to manage water as a resource. A lot can be learnt about the science of water harvesting and management in medieval forts. First up, let's look at the role of hydrology in the selection of these fort cities. These forts could support human habitations only because they had elaborate water harvesting systems. Invading armies would sometimes lay siege to these forts for months. During such times, there had to be enough water inside the fort to sustain its defenders and inhabitants for long periods. Let's explore how Chittorgarh works. The fort nestles in the Aravalli Hills at the eastern border of the Thar Desert. It is perched on the top of a huge oval hill about 152 meters high. The fort supported an entire city. Estimates indicate that at least 50,000 people lived in the fort at a single time, along with a large number of elephants and horses. In a year of more than normal rainfall, average annual rainfall 700 millimeters, enough water would be stored to last the next 12 months. Even after water loss due to seepage and evaporation and other causes, an army of 50,000 could live in the fort for 4 years without fear of thirst. The fort has 84 water bodies, out of which only about 22 exist today. These include talabs, ponds, kunds, wells, and bauris, step wells. Let us study how all this water was tapped. It was basically through underwater springs and rainwater harvesting. Groundwater is stored in and moves slowly through the geologic formations of soil, sand and rocks called aquifers. A spring is the result of an aquifer being filled to the point that the water overflows onto the land surface. And the harvesting of rainwater simply involves the collection of water from surfaces on which rain falls and subsequently storing this water for later use. In the fort at Chittorgarh, all talabs in the fort have natural catchments. The builders of Chittor not only harvested surface water but also the ground seepage. The kunds and bawalis are located below the talabs, so that even the seepage from the latter is not lost. The fort spreads over 500 hectares, 40% of which are given over to water bodies. The average reservoir depth is about 2 meters. Taken together, this means these reservoirs can store about 4 billion liters of water. Let us travel to one of the great Mughal structures, the Red Fort in New Delhi, to explore some of the devices the Mughals put in place to cool their stunning forts. The Red Fort was built when in 1638 Shah Jahan transferred his capital from Agra to Delhi. This massive walled citadel with red sandstone walls took nearly a decade to complete. When Shah Jahan built the Red Fort, it was on the west bank of the river. The Red Fort is shaped like an irregular octagon with 2 long sides on the east and west, and with 2 main gates, one on the west and the other on the south, called Lahori and Delhi gates respectively. The one thing that the Mughals struggled with was the Indian heat, especially in the capital city of Delhi. So many of the great Mughal forts and palaces were equipped with innovative cooling mechanisms. Simple devices like latticed screens or jalis filtered the sunlight. The jali helps in lowering the temperature by compressing the air through the holes. And when the air passes through these openings, its velocity increases, giving profound diffusion. The Diwani Khas has two sets of columns about 4 meters apart. Each set of columns could be fitted with curtains and screens according to the need at any time. In summer, there were 3 sets of screens used. 2 of them of grass mats kept wet by sprinkling of water. Heavy quilted curtains were suspended in place of these screens in winter. In the daytime, these curtains were raised up to allow the sun to warm up the building interior, and they were lowered in the evening to retain the warmth. Other more permanent features were woven into the fort. Many of the wall of the living areas, like the Sheesh Mahal, were extra thick, which ensured that they remained cooler. This is because heat flows through solids at rates measured by their conductivity. The rate of heat flow is also proportional to the thickness of the material. The Mughals came up with other interesting innovations to cool their spaces. For example, many of the interior walls of the fort were actually made up of 2 walls with a hollow space in between. This hollow space allowed the building to be cooled by the water that would flow between the walls. Along with this, there were vents that were carved into the walls that cooled the air further. Many of the fort's structures formed a part of the hydraulic system, like the Shah Burj. This controlled much of the water entering the fort. A system using hydraulic pressure was in place to draw up water from the river. Attached to the Shah Burj was a white marble pavilion, Burj-i-Shamli. A sloping marble chute sculpted in such a way as to make the water spurt as it ran down into a marble scalloped basin, from where it then spontaneously distributed into successively connected canals, which constituted the Nehri Bisht, stream of paradise. The Nehri Bisht then made its way through the grounds of the fort and eventually led out of the fort into the city of Shahjahanabad. Tucked away inside the fort is also a magnificent Baoli or step well, believed to be older than the fort and surprisingly in good condition. This Baoli is a unique structure. It has stairs from 2 sides, unlike the usual single staircases leading down to the bottom water tank. The 2 sets of stairs at 90 degrees mirror each other, giving the Baoli an L shape. At the deep end, where the stairs meet, is an octagonal tank measuring 6.50 meters in diameter and 14.27 meters deep. The history and development of water structures provide a fascinating testimony to the science and culture of the time. There is so much more to explore about water, the essential for any kind of settlement. And so, we will be continuing our exploration of water structures in our next episode of Building Blocks of Bharat. Don't forget to tune in.
77 years old, Rambali Singh had close ties with technology throughout his career. He retired as warrant officer from Indian Air Force 23 years back. These days, he spends time with a newly acquired smartphone, trying to decipher new age technologies through its features. He purchased this new smartphone from the funds he received under One Rank One Pension scheme. For lakhs of ex-servicemen like Rambali, it's an outcome of decades-long battle. An elated Rambali credits OROP for his newly elevated socio-economic status in the society. He articulates long-term benefits for the defense forces that may accrue with this landmark scheme.
हमारे पेमेंट 10 गुना बढ़ गए। आज हम जहाँ चाहें विदेश तक घूमने जा सकते हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं होती, बल्कि हम घूम के आए भी, सिंगापुर वगैरह घूम के आए हम ORP मिलने के बाद ही। तो मैं तो धन्यवाद ही करूँगा सरकार को। आज तक जितनी पहले 30-40 साल से लड़ाई चल रही थी, लेकिन ये हो नहीं पाया था और ये हो गया, तो हम तो बहुत शुक्रगुजार हैं इस सरकार।
The NDA government announced implementation of this much delayed and needed pension reform from 1st of July 2014. It pushed the defense budget for pensions from rupees 54,000 crores to around rupees 65,000 crore, an increase of about 20% in the defense pension outlay.
The government has taken a decision to implement the OROP.
The central government since then has also paid rupees 11,000 crore as arrears.
मिल गया तो बराबरी मिल गई। एक जवान की पेंशन डबल से भी ज़्यादा हो गई, क्योंकि आजकल जो जवान रिटायर होता है उसकी पेंशन डबल से ज़्यादा थी, तो पुराने वालों को लाके उसके बराबर कर दिया। इसीलिए मैं कहता हूँ सेटिस्फेक्शन लेवल बहुत ज़्यादा है।
OROP is a long-standing pension reforms demand of the Indian Armed Forces. It would allow same pension for same rank and for the same length of service irrespective of the date of retirement. OROP demand got new lease of life with 6th Pay Commission recommendations in 2008. The Pay Commission widened the disparity between military personnel who had retired before and after January 1st, 2006, the date from which it would take effect. The implications of the 6th Pay Commission were that a soldier with 17 years of service retiring before 2006 would get rupees 7,605 less than a soldier retiring in 2014. The gap widened with the rank.
अभी गवर्नमेंट ने जो दिया है 2015 के अंदर, उसके अंदर बहुत अच्छा है। ये अच्छी बात है, मोदी गवर्नमेंट ने ये दिया, क्योंकि ये डिमांड कम से कम अभी 40 से 50 साल पुरानी डिमांड है और इसको किसी गवर्नमेंट ने नहीं दिया। तो ये मैं मानता हूं कि इस गवर्नमेंट की एक बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि है कि इस गवर्नमेंट ने ये डिमांड जो थी हमारे जवानों की पूरी की।
To address the growing anomaly, the Indian servicemen movement was born in 2008. It led to serial hunger strike on February 8, 2009. As mark of protest, many ex-servicemen returned their medals and awards to the President of India. Even Supreme Court of India urged the current UPA regime to address the case sympathetically. But status quo remained and the protests continued. It was during 2014 elections, Bharatiya Janata Party promised to resolve this issue once in power. And true to its word, the BJP-led NDA announced implementation of One Rank One Pension roadmap on September 9, 2015. The key highlights of the scheme were: the benefit will be given with effect from July 1st, 2014. Arrears will be paid in 4 half-yearly installments. All widows, including war widows, will be paid arrears in 1 installment. Veterans above 60 years of age will also get arrears in one go.